Hello everybody, and welcome to Escape to Books. My name is Sarah, and this is my best reads of the past. So I really started reading again in 2016 as a brand new stay-at-home mom, and I did a lot of gaming and obviously taking care of the baby, cleaning the house, things like that. But I decided at some point that I wanted to get back into my old hobby that I had through middle school and high school of reading books. I started off really slow. In 2016, I gave myself a goal of 8 books and I read 7. My best book of that year was a book called Wild by Cheryl Strayed. I'll read you the description that's on Goodreads. At 22, Cheryl Strayed thought she had lost everything. In the wake of her mother's death, her family scattered and her own marriage was soon destroyed. 4 years later, with nothing more to lose, she made the most impulsive decision of her life. With no experience or training, driven only by blind will, she would hike more than 1,000 miles of the Pacific Crest Trail from the Mojave Desert through California and Oregon to Washington State, and she would do it alone. Told with suspense and style, sparkling with warmth and humor, Wild powerfully captures the terrors and pleasures of one woman forging ahead against all odds on a journey that maddened, strengthened, and ultimately healed her. Now, a lot of people look at this book and think, as a hiking book, it's going to tell me a lot about the trail and stuff like that. I would say don't go into this with that kind of mindset. For me, through the story, this is kind of a tale on how not to hike a trail such as this. And this person was probably really lucky to survive. But her antics through the story is funny. There are a lot of eye roll moments, and she's not, I would say, the brightest person in the bunch. This book has a lot of references to her sexy time stuff and her drug use. What I liked about this book is how she uses this experience as crossing a trail such as this to face her demons and get over her grief, not only with her mother but past experiences. I believe there is a movie based off this book, and I did read it. However, I wasn't a fan of the movie, and I would say go ahead and just watch the book and maybe skip the movie. Me and my family like to hike. We do short hikes, mile to 5 miles, since we travel across the country. We go to a lot of the different state parks. We have seen quite a few of them on our journey, and I've done a couple of the smaller trails. At some point, me and my husband would like to do the AT, which is part of the reason why this book was interesting to me. I didn't know a lot about the PCT going into it. It's not really one that I'm really interested in as a trail itself, but I thought I would go ahead and read this, and it definitely confirmed that this is not a hike that I would go on. Although the AT has its own challenges, the Appalachian Trail, I believe the PC Trail, the Pacific Crest Trail, would be really hard for anyone to do. And while this person definitely went above and beyond to do what she did not do it in the smartest way. She had no experience, and it is not recommended at all. Which is why I say that this book is definitely a how not to hike book on top of everything else. But this was my only 5-star read of 2016. In 2017, I had put that I wanted to read 20 books. Now, this was really challenging for me. I only got 8. I really tried to up my ante on this, and it was just too soon. Between taking care of a baby at this point, and especially one who I believe was walking and maybe potty training, this was wishful thinking. My 5-star read for this year was The Magnolia Story by Chip Gaines. If you watch any kind of, I think it's on TLC or the Home Network channel, you're going to know the Gaines family. They have a great fixer-upper show that has kind of bloomed into something even more. They even have their own channel now. Back in the day, I was really into these shows. They really made not only the fixing of the house look doable to anybody, but Joanna's home interior, although not my specific style, I always thought was really nice, and she really put her best foot forward when it came to what other people wanted. But this book isn't about their show. This book is about their early relationship, their life, their younger years, but apart and then again together. Chip, the husband, who is taking care of his young family and then also kind of jumping into one risk after the next and being successful, but also the level-headedness of Joanna, who is always kind of rebuking him a little bit, but also letting him dream. And I really liked that about this book. You would think something like this was kind of boring, but if you're a really big fan, or if you're a new fan to the show Fixer Upper, I would suggest this book before any of the others. There are multiples at this point, but this was my intro into their literary works, and I thoroughly enjoyed it, and it also gave me a whole new perspective on the show. 2018, I once again put out a 20-book goal, and once again didn't meet it. I did 11 books this year. This was a big year for us. We went on the road for the first time. Went to Texas. We went to, I believe, we went to Kentucky, and we also went to parts of Tennessee, and then we went back to our home in Florida, fixed it up, and sold it, and then went on the road full time. So that's part of the reason I didn't get most of my reads. It was also a very stressful year for me, being on the road with a small toddler, and it was really hard. And then not having a support system, not having family in the area, or knowing where any of the doctors were. A lot of this was different challenges, so I didn't get a whole lot of reading done that year. However, I did get a big one of that time. I read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. Before the movie came out, before really there was a whole lot of hype of it, I believe I did it on audiobook, and I would probably recommend it that way. I really liked it. I did it while I exercised and tried to lose some of the baby fat that I had acquired. And I will go ahead and read you the synopsis on Goodreads for this. In the year 2044, reality is an ugly place. The only time teenage Wade Watts really feels alive is when he's jacked into the virtual utopia known as the Oasis. Wade's devoted his life to studying the puzzles hidden within the world's digital confines. Puzzles that are based on their creators' obsession with the pop culture of decades past, and that promise massive power and fortune to whoever can unlock them. But when Wade stumbles upon the first clue, he finds himself beset by players willing to kill to take this ultimate prize. The race is on, and if Wade's going to survive, he'll have to win and confront the real world he's always been so desperate to escape. So I think a lot of people already know about Ready Player One. It was a pretty big movie back in the day. I really loved the 80s pop culture references, and even though I'm a 90s kid, I feel I did pretty good on getting a lot of them. I was saddened, though, by how much the Hollywood version of the movie got rid of when it comes to the 80s pop culture. There definitely wasn't as much references, and I really felt that was missed within the movie. Virtual reality is something that I really like, not only in movies, but in real life. I have a PlayStation VR, and since I have glasses, I don't get to use it very much, mainly because I don't want to scratch the lenses that we have, and now we have a PS5 with an old VR, so we haven't been able to use it at all. But when it comes to VR that maybe someday will be in something like Glasses Alone. I'm really excited to see what the world has in store. And since I'm a gamer as well as I watch a lot of, anime and stuff that has that kind of theme, I'm excited to see how close to our future will be. Not the humanity part where our world is overpopulated, but the virtual world aspect of it. In 2019, we had really got our stride traveling with a young child with an RV across the country, and I was finally able to reach a goal. So I think I started with a 20 book goal. I bumped it up to 22 books after I passed the 20, and I ended with 24. So 2019 was the first time that I finished my reading goal. This year I had multiple 5-star reads, and the one I decided to pick for this video is The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. Now, I can't say too much about this book without giving the whole thing away, so I'm going to read you the blurb. Melanie is a very special girl. Dr. Caldwell calls her our little genius. Every morning, Melanie waits in her cell to be collected for class. When they come for her, Sergeant Parks keeps his gun pointed at her while 2 of his people strap her into the wheelchair. She thinks they don't like her. She jokes that she won't bite, but they don't laugh. Melanie loves school. She loves learning about spelling and sums in the world outside the class and the children's cells. She tells her favorite teacher all the things she'll do when she grows up. Melanie doesn't know why this makes Miss Justino sad. So this book is really good. Like I said, I can't say too much about it without giving it away. I wouldn't call it obvious, but if you do decide to read this, know that it does have an indie film that is very close to the book, and I highly recommend it. And I believe it has the same name. There is a second book called The Boy on the Bridge. I have yet to get to this, but it is in my TBR, and I hope to get to it, if not this year, maybe next year. So in 2020, I bumped up my goal again to 25 books, and I made 26. Now this is a book that I missed apparently from my childhood. I guess a lot of people read it during their childhood. It's a nostalgic book for them. I happened to find it in my library in Arkansas, and they had their books, adult books and others, in order by author's last name, and I really like that. Sometimes if I can't think of a book, I'll just go to the beginning of a shelf and I'll just start at the beginning of the library shelf. So this is what I did, and his name is Adams. So the book that I picked up that was my favorite read was Watership Down by Richard Adams. This book is set in England, and it's told by rabbits. It's about man's expansion and nature's survival in the truest sense of the form, but it's as told from a rabbit's perspective, and their multiple members and everything like that. It's about their journey that they end up having to take, and it's very Redwall-esque, but almost in a more adult setting. There's also an old cartoon movie based on it, and after I read this, I definitely went back and found that movie and watched it. A lot of people said as children that they were traumatized by it, but I thought, while it was a little graphic for a kid's movie, I thought it was really good. And then in 2021, I bumped my goal up again to 40 books, and then I passed it and went to 42 books, and then I read 45. This was another multiple 5-star read year, and I had to take a pause and figure out what I was going to talk about. I had a lot of reads in this that some were pretty popular, such as George R.R. Martin's first book, A Game of Thrones, and then I had a Japanese, not retelling, but a Japanese a book called Honjin Murders by Seishi Yokomizu that I really liked. Kind of almost Sherlockian and, locker room murders type of stuff that I really liked. And while I don't think a lot of people know about it, I decided to talk about The Fireman by Joe Hill. This one really hit home for me because of the timing that I read it. So I read this at the height of COVID, and when you're in that setting and you read this book, it's almost blow for blow, kind of how things went, but in a different setting. So you have COVID ramping up and spontaneous combustion. Who knew that both of those things would have so much in common? They both dealt with the breaking down of society and a crisis, and it very much kind of meshed with the height of COVID at the time that I read it. As you probably know, Joe Hill is Stephen King's son, and this has been the only book that I've read so far, but I do plan to go back and maybe read some more of his works. I really did enjoy this. This has yet to have a movie, unlike most of my other books, but if it did, it would probably be pretty entertaining. Now we're finally into our last year, 2022. I once again ramped up my books and set a goal for 50 books through the year, and I did 56. This was another multiple 5-star book read throughout the year. I had multiple to choose from, and I decided to go with The 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out His Window and Disappeared by Jonas Jonasson. I'm not sure if I got his last name right. I believe he's Swedish, which is why the story is set in Sweden. It's about not only the present time, where this man is 100 years old, he turns 100 years old, he climbs out his retirement home window and goes on a walkabout, basically, and gets into all kinds of trouble. There's also a POV of these Russian organized crime syndicate guys who follow him throughout multiple countries because he causes a problem for them. So they go about trying to find him and figure out who he is. So you not only go through that kind of present time era, but you also go through his early life and everything that he went through throughout his life in the 100 years that he lived. And surprisingly enough, there is I thought, a very good movie based on this. It's only in Swedish, so if you don't like foreign films, this may not be for you, but I really enjoyed it. I would still recommend to read the book first before you watch the movie. There is some things that are really skipped over in the Hollywood version. Obviously, they can't have everything, and to know about that before you go into the movie was a little easier, especially if you're not used to reading. If you're not used to the language, Swedish was a new language for me, and it was a little different. And that's my last book for my best reads of the past. These are pretty much from when I started my journey rereading or reading books again to now, basically. If you've watched my videos here recently, then you will know that I have started in 2023, and you'll be up to date with me. If you would like to go look at my lists, they are still on Goodreads. I have it in my channel. I have the link in my channel, and if you would like to follow me on Discord, feel free to do so. I also am starting a Instagram. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it yet. And I haven't figured out how to link it to my channel, so if you want to go find that, it is escape2_books is the title, and I should be pretty easy to find. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe. Don't forget to comment anything that you did throughout the years, maybe some of your older favorites, and I will see you in the next video. Let's get back to reading.